conversation tonight, feel free to chat your question into the question area of the GoToWebinar panel. Also, there's a chat pane as well if you just want to chat. What I'm going to do is check that periodically to make sure that your questions are answered, and then of course we'll have some Q&A at the end with Juliana and myself. So again, I want to welcome you to our webinar. You could have chosen to be anywhere tonight, but you're here with us, and we are truly grateful for that. So let's go ahead and get kicked off. During the webinar tonight, if you hear any tidbits where you're like, wow, that's really a stellar nugget of knowledge, feel free to share that by tweeting on hashtag your social media hero. And we will definitely go back and check and connect with you and follow, because we do follow back here as well. So thanks so much for sharing. Let me first introduce myself. It's so nice to meet all of you. My name is Ty Heath, and I'm at LinkedIn as a agency and partner development lead. So what that means is I'm responsible for developing agencies and partners of LinkedIn all around the world. I'm also a blogger and founder of Spectacled Marketer, where we have courses to help you be successful in inbound marketing and social media. And we have a course called Marketers of Tomorrow, which is a 6-week course designed to help you slay and master your inbound marketing campaigns. So really excited to be here. And I'm not alone in this. We have a guest tonight on our webinar. I want to take the time to introduce Juliana. So Juliana, do you want to say a few words about yourself as we get started tonight?
Yeah, of course. So I'm kind of this crazy nut who worked on Wall Street and big corporate doing business operations for 10 years, and then decided to take my knowledge of running businesses and apply it to small business companies and entrepreneurs. I'm now the founder of Scale Time, where we help people scale to grow their business by helping them create systems and hire with quality so that their service can keep, having the same quality as when they once started. And now, like, entrepreneurs are able to really kind of concentrate on the one thing that they love instead of doing absolutely everything and wearing all the hats.
Exactly. High five on that. And I know as small business or medium-sized business owners, it is a real challenge. Even if you're working in corporate, all of the different hats we have to wear make it really challenging for us to achieve what we want to in the time period that we set out to achieve that. So really nailing the operations and having systems in place is a great thing. And so I'm really thrilled to have you here tonight with us, Juliana. And
Thank you so
folks, she's
much.
truly an expert in this. So really, it's a treat this evening. So what we're going to learn tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to Juliana to take us through the first part of the evening around setting up a strong operations plan. But what we're going to learn tonight is first learn how to assess your resources to determine whether doing it yourself or outsourcing is really the best move for you. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about budget. So that's something that we don't often hear about in the social media space. We just kind of jump into Facebook and Twitter and start tweeting. But what's really behind that? How do you determine your budget and go forward from there? From there, we're going to talk about building a team. So who are the different players? What kind of training do they need? What do you need to think about to get your team on the same page? And then at the end, we're going to share some great resources to help you succeed. And we will take questions, any questions you have. And also, we take requests. If there's anything that we didn't talk about that you want to hear more about, we can also do that. All right. So, without holding up any further, I'm going to turn it over to Juliana to get into planning your social media operations. So Juliana, just let me know when you want me to flip the slide since I'm driving here tonight.
Of course, thank you so much. So really thinking about, do I want to do social media myself or should I outsource it? And things that you may want to ask yourself, is does my business need social media right now? I mean, if you're just starting and you're trying to get a feel for, your messaging, what your clients really want, if you're doing customer interviews, social media may not be for you at the moment, but it may be if you're really starting to develop your brand. So how much time do I want to invest in social media? Social media ends up taking way more time than we originally think. And it's fun and it's really easy to get sucked into. So how much time do you want to invest, and do you have the time to invest? How much money do you want to invest in social media? And, beyond the fact of hiring someone, we also have to think about ad placements and pay-per-click and all of these different things that go into the budget of your social media strategy. Also, what kind of social media do I need? Do you have a location? Do you need Foursquare? Do you want to do Instagram? Is it something visual? Twitter, Facebook? We can go on and on and on. So really, what are the best platforms for you? And if you're starting off, the experimentation phase, like, do you want to try on more platforms and then choose from there? What do I want to create with my social media? And that's something that you really want to think about before you start it. Are you really trying to create your brand? Are you trying to develop it? Do you want to drive traffic to your website? Are you really looking to sort of generate sales and do lead generation? And these are some things that you want to think about as you're saying, okay, do I want to do this myself and take it on, or do I want to offload it to somebody else or a team, and what does that look like? Next slide.
Yep.
So if we're thinking about doing it ourselves, let's take a look about the costs. And the first thing, I think, the highest commodity as a business owner is time. Like, do we have the time, right? And if we do, can your business really afford you feeding the social media machine? Because it's something that is constant and consistent and needs to be always be generating. So really thinking about, is there slots of time in your schedule that will allow you to do this? Mistakes. If you're just starting off and you haven't had any real previous social media training or marketing training, chances are you're going to be in experimentation phase. And mistakes are going to happen. So the question that you may want to ask yourself is, can you afford the mistakes? Can you afford the experimentation? And one of the hidden costs of doing things yourself is your sanity. Just having patience with yourself and forgiving yourself, because you may run into sort of a social media rabbit hole, and you may end up spending too much time, or you may not spend enough time, or may not be consistent. And we want the results and we want them now, but do we get impatient waiting for them? So really having that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to do this for the long haul, and it's going to take something. And if I'm doing it for myself, with myself, for my business, can I really kind of stand myself throughout the process?
Right.
And then there's the learning curve. And this is something that we don't often talk about, but it's like all of your resources, and your budget, your money, everything that you need to kind of put into making an effective social media campaign, managing it, and seeing it through fruition so that it's successful. Next slide.
Yeah. Are you saying a lot of people kind of jump into this without really thinking about how much time it's going to take and what they can factor into it, Juliana?
I really do. I think there's a difference there's a distinction that sometimes entrepreneurs forget to make. And that it's like we're so social media heavy on a personal level, and it's fun. and it's a time sucker, and we spend time on social media anyway, like on Facebook during lunch. And so we have this concept of it being fun. But when we transfer it to actually doing social media for a business, which is a very, very different animal, we can oftentimes forget that it takes some learning, it takes some stuff, and it's a very different utilization than when we're doing it for ourselves and just kind of posting pictures. Like I was in Colombia this weekend and posting pictures of family members and having fun and getting likes, and it's a totally different animal than when you're doing it for your business.
Absolutely.
And what you factor into it is not only just the fun pieces of it, of the posting, but there's a lot of pre-work that goes into it, and post-work, and analytics. And that's kind of what we forget to factor in because we're just not exposed to it.
And if we're going to expose that tonight.
So, definitely.
Okay. All right, then. Keep on.
All right. So this learning curve of which we speak of. Kind of where are the resources to help bump up the learning curve? And I kind of listed them from least expensive to most expensive. So least expensive is books, right? There's so many, there's so much literature and materials that we can take a look at. And on the pro side, it's great, because books are, if someone has written a book, there's credentials, that, the person who wrote it has some idea of what they were talking about because it got published, and that it's going to be some good stuff. The cons, I think, with books is that you have to remember it. There has to be retention. You have to kind of figure out creative ways to apply it, and that's just kind of where that is. And then there's online education, webinars such as this one, and this is great because it's easy, it's accessible, you can do it from anywhere, you can literally be wearing anything, you could be in your PJs. I'm sure like half of you are in your PJs. And you can really access it anywhere in the world. So whether you're traveling or you're on your sofa, it's easy to digest. What's not so cool about webinars or online education in general or online products is that there's very little accountability, right? Like you can download something, you can purchase something, you can look at something, and then shelf it. And then there's no one holding you accountable to it. No one next month is going to say like, oh my God, did you really get that done? Live courses, yes, they still really exist. And you can go to a live course, and what's good about that is that it allows you to really sort of create a community and meet other people who are in the trenches with you. You can meet people to collaborate with, to share ideas, to use as sounding boards. And that's really phenomenal. What's not great about live courses or any sort of live education, as you may know, is that there's a true lack of flexibility. And then there's marketing coaches. So marketing coaches are phenomenal because you can learn from their mistakes. They've been through it, they've done it, and they can give you strategy. But then what happens is that we have this phenomenal ideas and things to implement, customize for business, but we have to implement. And how do we go about implementing? What does that day-to-day look like? Next slide. Ty, and feel free to jump in here because this is so you.
Sure.
And so part of the learning curve is also okay, so now what do we need to do in terms of this learning curve? What are the things that we're learning, right? And one of the most tedious operational things is setup. And for setup, one of the really cool things is that you get to really start playing with your branding and have fun with it and look at all of your assets. Unfortunately, there's a lot of technical pieces to it. Oh my God, what are the different dimensions for cropping a profile picture and getting all of that information? There's content, and as we know, content is king. And you can get really excited about writing and actually having your voice out there. But then we need that voice to actually create actions from the people who are following you and your audience and your communities. There's a
Yeah.
piece of
Yeah, I was
go
just going
for it.
to say this is something we recently really started investing in is making sure the copy and the titles are all compelling and really looking at is this a high quality title that's going to be more likely to get shares and tweets and all of those things. So it's not just about kind of haphazardly choosing a title. You really have to invest in thinking about is this going to be something that's shareable? Is this going to be compelling? And that does take some time and additional effort.
Yeah, and it's a whole art and craft to it. Then there's engagement. And what's great about engagement is that in the digital age, we get to really be social and like interact with our tribe, with our clients, with our prospects, and and have that direct contact. What is not so fun is sometimes learning the anatomy of that interaction, like, like where do you hashtag, where do you, like, how do you retweet properly, like all of these little nuances that take time to learn. And then there's analysis, which is usually people's like non-favorite thing, but some of us, we really love the analysis. We're like, oh my God, how many shares did this get? How many click-throughs? Like, what was the traffic? All of these things. On a con level, though, you have to learn how to use tools like Google Analytics, for instance. And for some people, that can get very tedious and complicated and overwhelming. Um, and even for people who have used it for a while, it can be all of those things still. So that's sort of what we're like dealing with when we're going through the learning curve of doing it yourself. Next slide. And of course, there's huge benefits of doing it yourself. One is that you get to save mucho dinero. There's a huge cost savings, which is why a lot of people gravitate to it. The other cool thing is that you get very acquainted with your social media and you really get to learn, you know, who your audience is. And you get to have control over the entire process. Next slide. Then we can think about, okay, so doing it yourself, that might seem like an interesting idea. Maybe you're thinking about it, maybe you're not. Maybe you're like, ugh, I don't want to do it. Maybe you're like, yes, I can't wait to like learn it. But then there's also outsourcing. And what's the cost of outsourcing? Well, the first one is money. Outsourcing is, of course, going to cost you more money than doing it yourself, hands down. Secondly, you may want to just be like, oh my God, I just want to turn over my social media. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to deal with it. Like, someone just take it on. But you actually have to set up some time during the initial setup phase. And you do have to be a part of that and the original strategy, because it is going to be an extension of your marketing and your overall business plan. So you can't just kind of hand over the keys immediately.
And I would
And
I would also say that it's something that you always do need to be plugged into as a business owner. I mean, that's your strategy, that's your brand, right? So
yeah,
it's not kind of one of those things where you say, here it is, see you later, right?
ciao.
Ciao, thanks. Yeah, no. So
Yeah. So there is a commitment to it, and you have to, like, even if you're outsourcing it, you're still committed to the process. Um, and lastly, there's a cost of kind of letting go of your inner control freak. If you're thinking about doing it yourself because like you just want to hold on to that piece of your business, when you outsource, you really are letting go. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially small business owners, that's a huge deal. So that's something to really think about. Next slide. All right. So when we're setting up, what do you need to actually do the setup, as we had talked about? So one of the things is your voice, and really having your social media be, an amplifier of your message. so that it sounds like you, it, walks like you, it quacks like you. It really should be that voice of your brand. The other thing to set up is your reading material, right? Whether you're doing it or someone else is doing it, just kind of where to curate information, research, and all of that so that they know where to grab information from. Your branding, so that your style is easily recognizable, your personas, and Ty will talk a little bit more about this later on, and basically so that they know who you're talking to, and your calendar. Like, we really want to get very familiarized with the frequency of like reaching out and engaging and how you're going to go about doing that. Next slide. So the benefits of outsourcing is that you don't have to do it day to day. Like, you really can let go, and it doesn't have to consume huge operations of your business. And if you're anything like us, and I always joke about this because we can get really obsessive over social media, is that the obsession kind of stops. Like, you're not looking at it 24/7, so you can actually concentrate on other pieces of your business, which is great. And, you can then really spend that energy in doing things like converting those leads that the social media is providing into sales. And, start making some money and have it really work for you instead of you working on it. Next slide. So when you're outsourcing, here's just a list, and we don't have to go through all of it, but really thinking about what are questions that you want to ask to get a clearer sense of your budget. So like, how many platforms will they be working on? How many posts per month? If are they going to be writing? How long will they be? Will they be short? Will they be long? Will they be creating the posts or just distributing them? Are you going to have, a hand in the content writing? Will they be interacting with followers or not? Are they growing your communities? How much experience do they have? And then also, like, how are they charging? Are there setup fees, project fees? Is it a monthly retainer? Is it a quarterly thing? And I think, and Ty, you can totally jump in here, but social media managers and content strategists really sort of range the gamut when it comes to budget.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think it's up to you as a business owner to decide what you need, but it's also really important to make sure that that person you're hiring is qualified to do that, right? It's not just because somebody has a Facebook account or they're on Twitter that they know how to run a social campaign. So be sure that you're really looking for that qualification, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, what that looks like, because having a sense of what setting up the strategy looks like will allow you to have the kind of conversations, either guide and grow someone, or I hire someone who already is versed in social media strategy.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next slide is when you're thinking about your budget, whether it's for do it yourself or you're outsourcing, whether you're looking for books or different resources, these are things that you really want to think about is sort of, okay, how are you going to learn or offload the strategy piece of it? Sort of all of your platform setups. How are you going to figure out sort of your automation and tools? All of the research that needs to get created for each of your posts. How many posts per month? Who's going to be creating them, editing them, posting them? The community management piece, like who will be engaging? How many engagements will you have? What kind of reach do you want? What type of people do you want to be, reaching out to? The analysis afterwards. And of course, like this beautiful webinar, who's going to end up doing the copy and graphic design so that it matches your style, it matches your branding, and basically so that you can like pretty up everything that you're doing online.
Right. I would definitely suggest that you don't have to start out with everything, right?
Yeah,
You
no, completely.
mhm.
Because if you start off with everything, you may go a little crazy. And as you're really starting to learn and experiment, I mean, Ty, what would you start off with?
Yeah, I mean, when I was first getting started with social media years ago and I was doing it myself, I used simple free tools to curate my own content and spent maybe 15, 20 minutes a day just curating posts on Buffer app, for example. That's a free social media tool. And that was okay in the very beginning. So I was just curating, researching, and curating third party posts. And then you kind of graduate from there as your business grows. But definitely don't feel like you need to have it all together to begin with. So that's one thing I would suggest in the early stage.
Yeah, and like with a lot of small business strategies, it's really about going lean, learning, seeing what people are engaging with, and kind of tweaking from there.
Right.
Yeah. So,
All right.
Ty, I think the next slide is
Awesome.
yours.
Got it. Okay. All right. So now we've talked about some of the considerations to set up, and obviously it takes time, but the beauty of it is that you don't have to have it together. It's about starting small and then playing bigger and bigger and bigger as your business grows, right? And being scrappy with it. But what we're going to talk about now is how to understand the different components of a social media campaign so that you can be an informed buyer should you choose to outsource that campaign. Or if you're running a DIY campaign, you can be versed in the elements of social strategy as you get started. Now, obviously, there's a ton of content we could cover. So we're going to cover things at a high level. And then if you're interested, there's also some more content that we can share with you after the webinar that digs further into social media. Now, Juliana alluded to this earlier in the presentation, the concept of buyer personas. Buyer personas, you can think of them as a fictional representation of your ideal customers. This is a description of the audience that you serve, right? And the reason why it's very powerful as a first step before you start developing any social media campaigns is that by creating a buyer persona, you can craft your social media so that you are actually talking to this person. Now, if you want to get more likes, retweets, and shares, this is a critical step because we really want that social media communication to feel as if you're having coffee with a friend or at a bar if that's your thing, right? It's a two-way conversation. And the way to really get there is by thinking about who is it that I'm serving? What are their challenges? What does their day look like? And how can I solve their problems with the content and the information I'm sharing, right? And this goes for whatever type of business you have. So start by thinking about who is it that I'm talking to, and how does your solution fit into their daily life, right? And they, of course, they'll love your product, but it's not really about you or your product. What we really want to get clear on is what are we solving? What problem are we solving for our audience, right? So we're really awesome, high fives all around, but we really want to get to what is it that is keeping them up at night? What brings them to look for the solution that you have to offer? As long as you focus on this and really document what those challenges are, your social media content is going to connect. Unfortunately, a lot of people kind of skip this step of really thinking about who is it I'm having that conversation with and what is the problem that I'm trying to solve each and every day with them. All of you are here because you're trying to figure out how to get more leverage out of your social media strategy, and that's what Juliana and I are really focused on here tonight with you. So the other thing is really knowing what your audience is searching for. So this may require some research, or it may require you sitting down and actually having a real coffee with someone that represents your target audience. So if you can get a sense of what is it that they're searching for online, you can bring this into your social media. The really powerful thing about bringing things that people are searching for into social, especially with Twitter, is that Google has started indexing tweets. This means that your tweets are now findable when people do Google searches. So it's even more powerful in terms of thinking about answering those questions and solving the problems of your customers. All right.
Ty, let me
Sure, go
ask you a
ahead.
real quick question about that.
Yep.
Do you have any quick tips on like, okay, if I'm really trying to research what people, what my audience is concerned with, like,
Mhm. Mhm.
is there anywhere that you would suggest I go online to do that beyond meeting people face to face?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So definitely meeting people face to face is number 1 that represent your ideal customers. You can also use online tools like the Google keyword tool to get a sense of the search volume. You can see what popular posts people are reading and sharing using a free tool called BuzzSumo. You can use another social network called Quora, Quora, which is a tool where people can submit questions for experts to answer. So you could literally go in there and find questions that people have already posted and build your campaigns off of those questions. So those are just a couple free tools that you can use to do some research about what your audience is looking for.
Great, thank you so much.
No problem. And you can also use those tools to stay on top of industry trends to help your audience. So there's a lovely tool called Google Trends where you can kind of see where different search queries are going, if they're increasing or decreasing. Again, uh, BuzzSumo, Feedly.com is a free tool where you can aggregate blog posts and read them like a newspaper each and every day. And this can help you stay on top of other bloggers or top influencers in your space so that you always know what's going on for your audience. As the business owner, you are responsible for being the guiding light for your customers, right? So I like to make sure they're not going to fall into any shark pools or any bear traps as they kind of go, right? So that's why we do
That's
this.
so true.
So we're looking out for you, and that's what we do for our customers. All right. The other thing to think about is what's the journey they take to making a decision. This, again, may require you having conversations to understand how they think through their problems. And then you can sort of map out what that looks like in terms of your social media campaign by focusing on different stages of their decision making process. And so you really want to illuminate the path from, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here, to, hey, I've got the answer, right? And the only way to do that is to understand the mindset of your audience. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit here. So that's one of the first steps, and I think a lot of people skip that, and they when they hire someone to take over their social media, they don't really understand who it is they're talking to, and that's a lot of wasted time because your content's not going to connect as well. The other mistake that people make is that they don't spend any time thinking about what am I really trying to do? And you talked about this a little bit earlier, but whether you want to start your own business, whether you're trying to stand out with your competitors or sell more, you really want to get clear on what that means or what that looks like to your business and come up with what we call SMART goals. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And what this means is that you are setting up what is the change you want to see specifically and by when do you want to see it and what is the quantity of that shift and what does that really mean to your business. So you want this to be a kind of a stretch but still not crazy out of reach. But if you can set and write your objectives in such a way that it follows this model, you'll have a clearer sense to both guide yourself if you're running your own social media campaigns or if you're talking to your social media manager. I meet with our social media manager once a week and we go over here's what we're doing each week. So that may be a good time for you to cover SMART goals for that month or on a weekly basis. Wow. Okay. So I bet you didn't really realize that social media had all of these different use cases. Social media can be used to drive innovation, meaning that you can tweet and post about product ideas and get feedback from your customers. You can measure the health of your brand in terms of how people respond. You can generate revenue. You can deliver customer service. So I really want you to take a look at this slide because a lot of people don't necessarily think about what are we really doing with social media or why are we doing this in the first place. There's so many powerful ways to use it, and more businesses are using social media in really amazing ways. Like, for example, JetBlue and their amazing customer service that they deliver through social. And so I would say, depending on what kind of business you have, think about what elements of this might make sense for you, right? Maybe you need feedback on products that you launch. Maybe you want to figure out where you can get more operational efficiency, right? So definitely leverage social media. And the reason why we're really thinking about this is that you've got to have that strategy. Just like Frodo defeated defeated the enemy in Lord of the Rings, you have
You
to have a
so
strategy.
went
One,
there.
you can't just walk into Mordor. You have to have a strategy, and then the strategy can be accomplished by the different tactics that you're using to achieve that strategy. So, the way that you think about it in terms of putting that together, if your goal, your SMART goal, is increase revenue by 20% by a certain date, that might mean getting more qualified leads. It might mean increasing retention. And then you have to think about, okay, if I want to get more leads, what am I doing to get more leads? Social media might be a part, one of the tactics. Maybe your social media campaign is the tactic that you're using to deliver more leads. So what I'm advising you to do is really think about that top level SMART objective, figure out how do I get there with the strategy, and then what is the tactic that you're using to achieve that, right? And so the difference between strategy and tactics, the strategy is the how, and the tactic is the no, sorry, the strategy is the what are you doing, and the tactic is the how are you getting there. So take the river, use a boat, right? That's the best way to remember the distinction here. All right. So now we're going to talk really quickly about your social media team and how to set that up. And I want to make sure we leave some time at the end for questions. So all of us on this call right now know that brands have to act like publishers, right? Each and every one of us, whether we realize it or not, is now running a magazine in addition to running our business. And that's why social media is so powerful. But the engine behind social media is content. And so this means that we have to have that content engine. It doesn't, and content doesn't appear out of nowhere. We need that to be an element of our social media planning. So, in order to create that process for social media management, you want to define the end goal and either have a social media task force, or maybe you are that task force and you want to think about what's that holistic strategy that you can take to be consistent. So, let's dig into this a little bit and talk about how do you actually do that. Your team, right? So this is, I love this infographic because it kind of illustrates the different roles that social media managers take. And I'm really thrilled, actually, the social media manager that runs the campaigns for Spectacled Marketer is on the call right now. And I'm thrilled to say that Renz, I know you can hear me. He is all of these things in one. And Andrea, if you're on the line as well, you as well. So it's beautiful to think about having a team, but you keep in mind that it is possible to hire people who have the expertise to take on all of these different roles, especially if you're a small business just getting started. You just have to know how to interview to find people who can take this on for you. And if you're doing it DIY, just make sure you start small, right? One of the things we're going to do after this webinar is we're going to send you job descriptions to help you do a better job of interviewing and finding people, finding the talent that can help you deliver excellence in your social media campaigns. And so I want to take a second to shout out Andrea and Renz, who are on the call today and just say I'm really thrilled that you have all of these different skills all rolled into one. You're able to analyze data. You've got that background of being digital natives who are adept in this space, clear communication. You've taken the time to really become inbound marketing experts, and you're excellent organizers and communicators and keeping the ball rolling forward for a spectacled marketer. So, we're going to share those job descriptions with you, and it'll give you a better sense of what to look for in your hiring process. We'll email that out to all registrants so that you can find expertise for this. All right. Those experts are going to help you, or you can do this for yourself, create an editorial calendar, and this is essential. So, Juliana talked a little bit about this earlier. We really want to spend some time thinking about, okay, what are my audience's challenges, and how do you organize those into different solutions, and think about what is the content I'm going to create, and how am I going to schedule or find content to share about these different things, right? So, some planning is great. The tool that I absolutely recommend, and this tool is free, that to do your editorial planning with is called Asana. And what you can do in Asana, it works on mobile, iPad, and desktop and laptop, is set out your editorial schedule for as far ahead as you can plan it, assign it to a specific person, and then you can keep all of your communications around your social media in one place. It's just such an awesome tool. I really can't say enough good things about Asana for creating your editorial plan on social media. Also, you want to choose the networks to support your brand. So, as you learn more about your target audience, you really want to think about what are the social channels that they frequent and where are you most likely to find them. So, don't guess. And another piece of advice, if you're just getting started, don't think you have to be on every social channel. Just focus on one at a time and grow from there. Start with the one that your audience is most likely to be on, and then continue to add other social channels as you grow. It's a big mistake to take on every single social channel at once if you're just getting started.
Yeah, please don't.
Don't do that to
We urge you not to do
yourself.
that.
Yeah. Right. Juliana talks a little bit about defining your brand's position. People think branding is fluffy, but it's actually one of the most powerful things that you can do because there's so much noise on social media. You want to think about what is it you stand for? What is the difference you want to make in the world? And everyone is unique. I mean, honestly, so it pays to really think about what's your voice and how do you get authentic branding around how you communicate with your following, right? So be yourself, really. The other time saving thing is to look at what your competition is doing. So it's you don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? See what's already working. Look at how much your competitors are sharing original content they create versus where are they curating content from? Where are they sharing third party content from? Take a look at how much they're being entertaining versus being educational or salesy, right? And then take a look at their Twitter accounts and their Facebook accounts and seeing what content is resonating most with their audience, because most likely if it's working for them, it's going to work for you too. And then you can sort of take, obviously you're not copying them. What you're doing is just learning from what they've already done and then starting with a great foundation for yourself, right? All right. So we talked about branding and voice. After looking at your competitors, really think about these things. And these are things you want to communicate to your social media team. People don't necessarily take the time to think about what's your voice online? Are you playful? Is the language you use savvy, serious, whimsical, right? So you really want to think about these elements because this will make you distinct in a sea of people that are competing with you, right? Again, it's like having a coffee with someone or having a beer with them, really. And you want to think about what's that voice? Are you a consultant? Are you Are you selling t-shirts? Are you like, what are you doing, and what is the appropriate voice that you would have to guide someone who you really care about, right? That's what you want to think about for your brand. This is a quick example of a tool that you can use to educate your audience around what type of language to use. So you want to create something like this and share it with your team, and this will help them have a sense of do this but not that. And this, if you, especially if you outsource your social media, making it really clear with examples like this is going to be really powerful, and make sure there's no mistakes in the voice that they use. All right. So, top 5 tips for launching: start early, brand, communicate your guidelines with those examples like you just saw in the previous slide, reward your employees because they're doing so many awesome things for you. And then don't start all at once. Focus on continuous improvement. Okay. All right. Now, I want to leave at least 5 minutes, so we're going to fly through this last part. And these slides will be available for you to download after the webinar. So don't feel rushed or like you have, if you're taking notes, that you have to write everything down really quickly. These slides will be available to you. I love this infographic because it gives you a good sense of pulling everything together into a promotional strategy for a campaign. So we talked about research, target personas, Quora, YouTube, forums, getting a sense of who are they and what does that content look like? What does that voice look like? Then you publish your content, and there's so many ways to publish. You can publish on your site, your blog, slide media places. Then you broadcast on social media to get the content out there and get greater reach. And then engage and refer. So it's not about just blasting content out to your following. It's also about engaging with them and interacting with them. And this is where factoring either that time to yourself. So in the very beginning, I was factoring 15, 20 minutes a day to just jump on my mobile device and see who tweeted at me, who had a conversation, and then I would just respond, right? So factor that time, and then make sure on a monthly basis that you take a look at what worked and what didn't work, and make sure you're investing more on things that do work, right? So, for example, on this slide, we realized that people were really interested. A lot of people favorited this post on web design, so we can do more of that. And here's another post: top 3 things every startup owner should prioritize. So when you see that people like your content, provide more of that content, take it from a different angle, and that's how you can really start to build. The other thing to do is really leverage influencers. So as you're writing social media posts, really bring in other people that have a large social following, maybe by citing something that they said, or sharing some of their content, interacting with them on Twitter, retweeting their content. Over time, you can really build a relationship with those people and then they'll start sharing your content that can provide a real boost and some wind beneath your wings as you get started. All right. So I just really want to reinforce this point about finding your most successful content. If I didn't say it enough, you really want to take a look at what's working, what's not working. There's Google Analytics. Here's another tool that's relatively affordable, social metrics that you can use to see what's going on with your social posts and where you should invest more time. For example, Social Media Examiner, which is a really great blog on social strategy. This was their all-time most shared post on Facebook, which is just a funny post on tech support. So, of course, since this worked, maybe they want to share some more cartoons and some more fun stuff for their audience. All right. I promise you we're just about done with the content here. I want to make sure nobody makes this rookie mistake. So keep in mind that once you have a piece of content, sharing it once is a big mistake. You want to share it more than once. On Twitter, the stream moves really quickly. So keep in mind that you can share it once you publish it, the next day, next week, next month. Facebook, Google Plus, same thing with other social networks. One of the things that a lot of folks do is they make a really great piece of content, but then they only share it once. That means that hardly anybody sees it. So don't bury your great content, share it multiple times, right? Have a plan in your editorial calendar to share that post several times over a period of time. All right. Now, as we wrap up, just want to review again measuring your success on social media. So you've got your business goals, right? So whether you're focused on increasing the health of your brand, generating revenue, improving your customer experience, then you've got your business metrics. So you want to take a look at how it's influencing your reputation. In terms of metrics, you can measure things like engagement, shares, and then you can use different tools and techniques. And we're not going to get into those tools and techniques here, but we're definitely going to give you some channels to continue to learn after this webinar is over. So one of those channels I want to talk really quickly to is called Marketers of Tomorrow. Marketers of Tomorrow is, again, a 6-week course designed to help you slay your inbound marketing campaigns. Within this course, there is a component of it that focuses on social media and making sure that your promotion game on social media is strong. So we definitely encourage you to register for the Marketers of Tomorrow newsletter. We're opening for enrollment in January and would love to have everybody on this webinar register for that course. And we will be sending more information about that over the next couple months. So stay tuned for that. Okay, we don't leave people empty-handed, do we, Juliana?
Nope, we
Nope.
don't. We
Okay,
never
there.
ever
I was
do.
wondering if you disappeared for a second there. So we've
I
got
did not.
we are going to be sending you a social media operations checklist, and we're going to be sending those job descriptions as promised. I just want to also encourage you to reach out if you have any questions at all. Juliana is an operations master, and if you need any support at all, uh, I encourage you to reach out to her. She can help you remove some of the barriers to business growth. Juliana, do you want to say a little bit about that as we wrap up?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If you're a service-based business and you are in sort of the motion to really grow and scale your business and you want to just hop on a call for 20 minutes and kind of see where your challenges or gaps or kind of, just sort of really solidifying your scale strategy, I can totally hop on a call with you and I would be glad to do that. Like, I love helping business owners. Like, I really pride myself in being a resource and just kind of seeing where I can be of help and show some guidance.
Awesome. And should they just tweet at you? Will you
They
get
can
them that
tweet at
way?
me. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Cool, cool. All right. So I know we like ran all the way up until time. If you want to ask any questions, feel free to hang out. I'm going to hang out here on the line for another 10 minutes or so, just to make sure that we have all questions answered. If you do have any questions at this time, feel free to start asking, and I'll actually check to see if there are questions because I have the slides up and I haven't been able to check. And then, of course, subscribe to the Marketers of Tomorrow newsletter. There's the link right there for you. And I will turn over to questions at this time. Okay. So, Juliana, a question for you in terms of scaling your business on social media. What are some of the challenges that you've seen, I guess, most often in people taking on too much, or how do you get out of this mindset of needing to do everything on your own?
Um, of course, I think I call it the delegation hump. I think that there's a moment as you start to take on more and more clients or more and more business where you have no choice. You have to delegate. And that's really kind of one of the only ways that you will be able to grow your business, whether it's a small team or a large team. You can't do it all yourself. And one of the things that I tell my clients is to really put everything on your schedule. Make your schedule your best friend. Don't feel like you're a hostage to it. I just wrote a blog article about it. um, you really want to make sure that you have time for everything, and what you don't have time for, what you feel yourself getting backlogged in, the things that are tedious, the things that are, I mean, maybe you love writing content, but you don't like doing the research for it in social media. Maybe you love to look at the analytics, but not necessarily actually do the distribution. So really take a look at the pieces that you don't enjoy and who is best fit to do those. And always look at your opportunity costs, like if this is not something that you love to do or that you're great at, where would your time best be spent on? Is it on sales? Is it on the creative strategy for your business? Where are your skills best suited? And I think if you kind of take a look at that, that'll really help you start to delegate and create more capacity for more business and be able to scale.
Great, great. Yeah. So we have a question on most liked or most preferred social media tools for each stage as you develop. So I can speak to this a little bit more. So I talked about early on in my social media plan, I was on my own. And for the most part, I was doing most of the curation and writing of my posts myself. At that stage, I was using Buffer app. So that was, and I still use it occasionally today. It's a great tool for easily going to a blog post, for example, and there's an extension that you can put into your browser where you can click it and it will automatically create a tweet that you can edit right there in your browser. So it's a really simple tool to get started with as a business owner. As you sort of graduate, you're going to want to think about other types of tools that have additional features. You could also pay for Buffer Premium, so that allows you to have more access to different features and also metrics. We have used HubSpot, which is an all in one marketing platform that has a social media engine, social media listening, and other components. We also use a tool called Meet Edgar, which allows you to create posts and assign them to different categories like special offers, education, and other topics that will then automate the sharing of your posts over time. So those are paid tools. And so obviously it may not make sense for you to start out with a tool like HubSpot or Meet Edgar. But as you grow, looking at some paid tools is going to be a way for you to really get more leverage for your social media. All right. Any other questions? We had two questions. Any other questions this evening? All right. Well, we will go ahead and wrap up for the night. Definitely want to thank all of you for joining. It's been a pleasure. Again, you could have been doing anything else this evening, but you chose to be here with us, and we're really grateful for that. We will definitely send a follow up with your care package as promised, and more information about how to really succeed and achieve your goals with your social media campaign. Thank you so much.
Definitely. And thank you so much for having me here and allowing me to kind of share my piece and my knowledge to everything that you do. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Yeah, you're awesome. So glad to have you tonight. All right, everyone, have a great evening.